Hello and welcome to the second episode on the State of the Union addresses. With the address, there are also replies from both houses of Congress, which will be included in this video as well. If you want to read along, you can get the transcripts from the site www.theamendingamerica.com, link in the description below, and the text is on the page called Timeline. The Second State of the Union, George Washington's Second Annual Message. Senate Chamber of Federal Hall, New York City, December 8th, 1790. Fellow citizens of the Senate and the House of Representatives, in meeting you again, I feel much satisfaction in being able to repeat my congratulations on the favorable prospects which continue to distinguish our public affairs. The abundant fruits of another year have blessed our country with plenty and with the means of a flourishing commerce. The progress of public credit is witnessed by a considerable rise of American stock abroad as well as at home, and the revenues allotted for this and other national purposes have been productive beyond the calculations by which they were regulated. This latter circumstance is the more pleasing as it is not only a proof of the fertility of our resources, but as it assures us of a further increase of the national respectability and credit, and, let me add, as it bears an honorable testimony to the patriotism and integrity of the mercantile and marine part of our citizens. The punctuality of the former in discharging their engagements has been exemplary. In conformity to the powers vested in me by acts of the last session, a loan of 3,000,000 florins, toward which some provisional measures had previously taken place, has been completed in Holland, as well as the celerity with which it has been filled as the nature of the terms, considering the more than ordinary demand for borrowing created by the situation of Europe, give a reasonable hope that the further execution of those powers may proceed with advantage and success. The Secretary of the Treasury has my directions to communicate such further particulars as may be requisite for more precise information. Since your last sessions, I have received communications by which it appears that the District of Kentucky, at present a part of Virginia, has concurred in certain propositions contained in a law of that state, in consequence of which the district is to become a district member of the Union in case the requisite sanction of Congress be added. For this sanction, application is now made. I shall cause the papers on this very transaction to be laid before you. The liberality and harmony with which it has been conducted will be found to do great honor to both the parties, and the sentiments of warm attachment to the Union and its present government expressed by our fellow citizens of Kentucky cannot fail to add an affectionate concern for their particular welfare to the great national impressions under which you will decide on the case submitted to you. It has been heretofore known to Congress that frequent incursion has been made on our frontier settlements by a certain banditti of Indians from the northwest side of the Ohio. These, with some of the tribes dwelling on and near the Wabash, have of late been particularly active in their depredations, and being emboldened by their impunity of their crimes and aided by such parts of the neighboring tribes as could be seduced to join their hostilities, or afford them a retreat for their prisoners and plunder, they have, instead of listening to the humane invitations and overtures made on the part of the United States, renewed their violences with fresh alacrity and greater effect. The lives of a number of valuable citizens have thus been sacrificed, and some of them under circumstances peculiarly shocking, whilst others have been carried into deplorable captivity. These aggravated provocations rendered it essential to the safety of the Western settlements that the aggressors should be made sensible that the government of the Union is not less capable of punishing their crimes than it is disposed to respect their rights and reward their attachments. As this object could not be effected by defensive measures, it became necessary to put in force the act which empowers the President to call out the militia for the protection of the frontiers, and I have accordingly authorized an expedition in which the regular troops, in that quarter are combined with such drafts of militia as were deemed sufficient. The event of the measure is yet unknown to me. The Secretary of War is directed to lay before you a statement of the information on which it is founded, as well as an estimate of the expense with which it will be attended. The disturbed situation of Europe, and particularly the critical posture of the great maritime powers, whilst it ought to make us more thankful for the general peace and security enjoyed by the United States, reminds us at the same time of the circumspection with which it behooves us to preserve these blessings. It also requires that we should not overlook the tendency of a war and even of preparations for a war among the nations most concerned in active commerce with this country, or abridge the means and thereby at least enhance the price of transporting its valuable productions to their markets. I recommend it to your serious reflections how far and in what mode it may be expedient to guard against embarrassments from these contingencies by such encroachments to our own navigation as will render our commerce and agriculture less dependent on foreign bottoms, which may fail us in the very moments most interesting to both of these great objects. Our fisheries and transportation of our own produce offer us abundant means for guarding ourselves against this evil. Your attention seems to not be less due to that particular branch of our trade which belongs to the Mediterranean. So many circumstances unite in rendering the present state of its distressful to us that you will not think any deliberation misemployed which may lead to its relief and protection. The laws you have already passed for the establishment of a judiciary system have opened the doors of justice to all descriptions of persons. You will consider in your wisdom whether improvements in that system may yet be made, and particularly whether a uniform process of execution on sentences issuing from the federal courts be not desirable through all the states. The patronage of our commerce, of our merchants and seamen, has called for the appointment of consuls in foreign countries. It seems expedient to regulate by law the exercise of that jurisdiction and those functions which are permitted them, either by express convention or by a friendly indulgence in the places of their residence. The consular convention, too, with the most Christian Majesty, has stipulated in certain cases the aid of the national authority to his consuls established here. Some legislative provision is requisite to carry these stipulations into full effect. The establishment of the militia, of a mint, of standards of weights and measures, of the post office and post roads are subjects which I presume you will resume, of course, and which are abundantly urged by their own importance. Gentlemen of the House of Representatives, the sufficiency of the revenues you have established for the objects to which they are appropriated leaves no doubt that the residuary provisions will be commensurate to the other objects for which the public faith stands now pledged. Allow me, moreover, to hope that it will be a favorite policy with you not merely to secure a payment of the interest of the debt funded, but as far and as fast as the growing resources of the country will permit to exonerate it of the principal itself. The appropriation you have made of the Western land explains your dispositions on this subject, and I am persuaded that the sooner that valuable fund can be made to contribute, along with the other means, to the actual reduction of the public debt, the more salutary will the measure be to every public interest, as well as the more satisfactory to your constituents. Gentlemen of the Senate and House of Representatives, in pursuing the various and weighty business of the present session, I indulge the fullest persuasion that your consultation will be equally marked with wisdom and animated by the love of your country. In whatever belongs to my duty, you shall have all the cooperation which an undiminished zeal for its welfare can inspire. It will be happy for us both, and our best reward, if, by a successful administration of our respective trusts, we can make the established government more and more instrumental in promoting the good of our fellow citizens, and more the object of their attachment and confidence. The Senate reply given by John Adams to George Washington on December 13th, 1790. We receive, sir, with particular satisfaction the communications contained in your speech, which confirm to us the progressive state of the public credit, and afford at the same time a new proof of the solidity of the foundation on which it rests. And we cheerfully join in the acknowledgment which is due to the probity and patriotism of the mercantile and marine part of our fellow citizens, whose enlightened attachment to the principles of good government is not less conspicuous in this than it has been in other important respects. In confidence that every constitutional preliminary has been observed, we assure you of our disposition to concur in giving every requisite sanction to the admission of Kentucky as a district member of the Union, in doing which we shall anticipate the happy effects to be expected from the sentiments of attachment towards the Union and its present government, which have been expressed by the patriotic inhabitants of that district. While we regret that the continuance and increase of the hostilities and depredations which have distressed our northwestern frontier should have rendered offensive measures necessary, we feel an entire confidence in the sufficiency of the motives which have produced them, and in the wisdom of the dispositions which have been concerted in pursuance of the powers vested in you. And whatever may have been the event, we shall cheerfully concur in the provisions which the expedition that has been undertaken may require on the part of the legislature, and in any other which the future peace and safety of our frontier settlements may call for. The critical posture of the European powers will engage a due portion of our attention, and we shall be ready to adopt any measures which a prudent circumspection may suggest for the preservation of the blessings of peace. The navigation and the fisheries of the United States are objects too interesting not to inspire a disposition to promote them by all the means which shall appear to us consistent with their natural progress and permanent prosperity. Impressed with the importance of a free intercourse with the Mediterranean, we shall not think any deliberations misemployed which may conduce to the adoption of proper measures for removing the impediments that obstructed it. The improvement of the judiciary system and the other important objects to which you have pointed our attention will not fail to engage the consideration they respectively merit. In the course of our deliberations upon every subject, we shall rely upon that cooperation which an undiminished zeal of incessant anxiety for the public welfare on your part so thoroughly ensure. And as it is our anxious desire, so it shall be our constant endeavor to render the established government more and more instrumental in promoting the good of our fellow citizens and more the object of their attachment and confidence. The House reply by James Madison, Fisher Ames, and Thomas Tudor Tucker on December 13th, 1790. The representatives of the people of the United States have taken into consideration your address to the two houses at the opening of the present session of Congress. We share in the satisfaction inspired by the prospects which continue to be so auspicious to our public affairs, the blessings resulting from the smiles of heaven on our agriculture, the rise of public credit, with the further advantages promised by it, and the fertility of resources which are found so little burdensome to the community, fully authorize our mutual congratulations on the present occasion. Nor can we learn without any additional gratification that the energy of the laws for providing adequate revenues have been so honorably seconded by those classes of citizens whose patriotism and probity were more immediately concerned. The success of the loan opened in Holland under the disadvantages of the present moment is the more important as it not only denotes the confidence already placed in the United States, but as the effect of a judicious application of that aid will still further illustrate the solidity of the foundation on which the public credit rests. The preparatory steps taken by Virginia in concert with the District of Kentucky, towards the erection of the latter into a district member of the Union, exhibit a liberality mutually honorable to the parties. We shall bestow on this important subject the favorable consideration which it merits, and, with the national policy which ought to govern our decision, shall not fail to mingle in the affectionate sentiments which are awakened by those expressed on behalf of our fellow citizens of Kentucky. Whilst we regret the necessity which has produced offensive hostilities against some of the Indian tribes northwest of the Ohio, we sympathize too much with our Western brethren not to behold the approbation, the watchfulness, and vigor which have been exerted by the executive authority for their protection, and which, we trust, will make the aggressors sensible that it is their interest to merit by a peaceable behavior the friendship and humanity which the United States are always ready to extend them. The encouragement of our own navigation has at all times appeared to us highly important. The point of view under which you have recommended it to us is strongly enforced by the actual state of things in Europe. It will be incumbent on us to consider what mode our commerce and agriculture can be best relieved from the injurious dependence on the navigation of other nations, which the frequency of their wars renders a too precarious resource for conveying the protections of our country to market. The present state of trade to the Mediterranean seems not less to demand, and will accordingly receive the attention which you have recommended. Having already concurred in establishing a judiciary system which opens the doors of justice without distinction of persons, it will be our disposition to incorporate every improvement which experience may suggest, and we shall consider, in particular, how far the uniformity which in other cases is found convenient in the administration of the general government throughout all of the states, may be introduced into the forms and rules of executing sentences issuing from the federal courts. The proper regulation of the jurisdiction and functions which may be exercised by consuls of the United States in foreign countries, with provisions stipulated to those of His Most Christian Majesty established here, are subjects of too much consequence to the public interest and honor not to partake of our deliberations. We shall renew our attention to the establishment of the militia and other subjects unfinished at the last session, and shall proceed in them with all the dispatch which the magnitude of all and the difficulty of some of them will allow. Nothing has given us more satisfaction than to find that the measures heretofore established have proved adequate to the purposes to which they were allotted. In extending the provision to the residuary objects, it will be equally our care to secure sufficiently and punctuality in the payments due from the Treasury of the United States. We shall also never lose sight of the policy of diminishing the public debt as fast as the increase of the public resource will permit, and we are particularly sensible of the many considerations which press a resort to the auxiliary resource furnished by the public lands. In pursuing every branch of the weighty business of the present session, it will be our constant study to direct our deliberations to the public welfare. Whatever our success may be, we can, at least, answer for the fervent love of our country which ought to animate our endeavors. In your cooperation, we are sure of a resource which fortifies our hopes that the fruits of the established government will justify the confidence which has been placed in it, and recommend it more and more to the affection and attachment of our fellow citizens. Thank you for listening to the Second State of the Union and its congressional replies. Please like and share the video, subscribe to the channel, and click the notification button. You can support the channel on Patreon and become a member of the site, The Amending America, where you can find the historical documents along with getting your essays and policy proposals published on the site for free. Thank you and have a nice day.